Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in again. In today's video, we are going to be installing this kit from Offroad Gorilla. And what this is, if you don't know, is the relocation kit for the rear diff breather on 2022 plus Nissan Frontiers. Now you can search. This also works for the second gen Frontier. It's the same kit, but on the websites, because these guys aren't the only one that make this kit, but this is their kit. On the websites, they do still split it up sometimes between the second gen and third gen, but this is the same kit and it works for both trucks. So if you're getting confused, it'll work. And again, shout out to these guys at Offroad Gorilla because I emailed them and said, hey, this is what I got. I've got a 2023 Frontier making videos for YouTube, and they actually sent this kit out to me for free. So big shout out to these guys. And if you're interested in this kit yourself, this is how you're going to install it. But we'll get right into the video. What you get in the kit. Obviously you get your hose, plenty long enough for what you need to do, and you'll see when we install it. You got lots of hose here. It won't be too short. You'll have plenty in the kit also. You get 4 little zip ties here to strap up the hose once it's in place. You get 3 little clamps. You can see there. You either need a nut driver or a flathead screwdriver, whichever the case may be, to tighten those up when the time comes. Then you get your little fitting here, which replaces the factory breather in the rear diff right now. You'll see that when we get under the truck. And then what stands out from this company to other companies that make these kits is you actually get this filter that's fully enclosed. It's got its own little case here. Now, I don't know which way's up and down. I've watched a few other videos. I don't think it really matters. For me specifically, I'm going to put it this way so the filter is up, because I figure if for some reason any water or condensation or whatever gets in here, if it's sitting this way, gravity will make it go to the bottom and you won't actually be plugging the filter up itself. But that's up to you. You can put it up or down. Now this stuff all does come in a case. I just opened it all up for your viewing on YouTube. It does come packaged in here, and your filter was in the little plastic container here. So this is the whole kit. It's very easy to install, so let's get on that. All right, so tools wise to get this kit installed, you don't need much. A 14 mil wrench, that is for the breather that's already on the diff under the truck from factory. Now, from what I've read, it's 14 mil. I haven't actually been under the truck yet. If that changes, I will let you know. Then you need a 12 millimeter wrench for this specific kit, because the replacement one here, you can see it's got the little nut on there. If you take the blue plastic cap off, it's just threaded. You'll see that when we get under there. But this thing is a little smaller. It's a 12 mil, so you need that. You'll need a plastic pry tool, because this actually is relocated behind the passenger taillight. So once you get the 2 screws out the side, you may need to get the plastic pry tool in there to pop it out, because this light, when it's loose, has to come straight out towards the back. To get the light out, you also need just a Phillips screwdriver. It's 1-2 screws on the light. That's all that holds that thing in. And then for the clamps, to actually clamp the hose onto the filter and the little fitting here, you need a 1/4 inch nut driver. That's all you need to tighten it up. And again, if you don't have nut drivers, you can use a flathead screwdriver as well. Just a little bit more of a pain in the butt, I find. So if you got that, this is all you need to install the entire kit. All right, so first step I'm gonna do is work on getting the taillight out. And you've got 1 screw on the top there, and then you come down to the bottom, you got another one there. Now remember, for when you put these things back in, these things are not cranked down super tight. So one-handed, you can get this in. I've already got them a little bit loose just for the video, but they were not tight at all. And if you look close there, if it'll spin right there, you can actually see they have lock washers on them. So when you tighten these back up, as long as the lock washer is squished, that's more than tight enough, because of course the housing and everything for this is all plastic. So you don't want to break anything or strip it, because then you're going to have some big issues that you don't want to deal with. So just remember, pay attention to how tight they are when you're loosening them off. And when you put it back on, you don't have to reef this thing down. It's not that tight, easy to get out with one hand, and move on to the next step. And just like that, the tail light is out. Now keep in mind, once you get the 2 screws out the side, this thing is not going to fall off, so you don't have to worry about it too much. But if you look, in the bottom right here, you get a little pin. Then when you come up to the top, right here, you have a little pin. And that basically clips into that little brown clip here and the little gray clip right there. So that kind of, when you push it in, it'll click in. It's like an extra pair of hands for you almost. So you don't have to worry about it falling out, but you do have to worry about breaking those off. So once this light is loose with the screws, what I did, put your hand here because the light's got a little bit of a dip here. So just put your hand here, pull slightly. The top ones seem to come out fairly easily. The bottom one is where it's snug. So pop the top one off. That'll give you a little bit of a gap between the light and the body. Then grab your pry tool, and what I did is I put it right in the corner here, kind of just above where that clip is. Put it in, give it a little twist, and it pops out no problem. Then the other thing, it'll kind of feel like it's stuck. That's just because of the cable here. You can see they got a little zip tie and a pin here, and then another one here. And what that is if you look on the light back here, you have a little tiny hole there and a little tiny hole near the bottom. So those clips just clipped into that spot. Just keeps the wiring snug and from rattling around when you're driving. So when you're trying to get the light out, if it feels like it's stuck, it's just because the cable's attached to it and you don't have that slack to get this thing out of the way. All right, so here we are under the truck, and I can tell you guys right now, we've got the Dobinson lift. You can go back and check out those videos. But with the Dobinson 3-inch lift and the bigger tires, you can sit under here. I'm sitting cross-legged, sitting right up. I have the spare tire removed, but I can actually sit under this truck without having it jacked up at all. You can see the tires are on the ground. But just so you know, if you want to lift your truck, it gives you plenty of room under here to do jobs like this one. But what we're looking for right now, you come over to the passenger side here. This right here is the breather from factory. That's what you want to get out. I can confirm 14mm wrench does fit on there. Only thing I recommend before you take that out is, if you look, it's quite dirty on top. Get a rag, maybe a little bit of water, and just wipe it down. Make it as clean as you can before you thread that thing out. Because if you get any sand or dirt and grime and stuff inside there, and it gets stuck in here and starts going around with the oil and your gears are crushing it, you're going to wear and tear everything in there. It's going to be a bad time for you. All right, so now that she's a little bit cleaned up, you don't have to worry about anything getting in there. Grab your wrench. The box end actually fits over the breather itself, and just start loosening her off. Now these things aren't in there super tight. What I always recommend is kind of pay attention to how much pressure you're taking on or putting on to get this thing out, because there's no torque specs for any of these things. So when you're putting the new one in, you don't want to over torque it because you're going to strip the threads and it's going to end up leaking. But you also don't want it to be too loose, because same idea, if it's not tight enough, when the pressure starts building in these things, it's going to work its way out and leak. So you can get that out, easy as that. Come back under here, put the new one in. All right, so now I've got this out of the truck. I can show you a little bit more in detail what I'm talking about and why you should install a kit such as this. And basically this relief valve, or whatever you want to call it, just on a little spring here. You can see I push it down, it pops it back up. Now, keep in mind, I haven't had this truck off-road maybe more than 2-3 times. And you can see where I didn't wipe just how much gunk and stuff already collects on here. And now keep in mind, I cleaned up the top pretty well. Couldn't get the rag in there as good on this part, so I didn't get it cleaned off. But this is almost all just off of road grime. And not only that, but now we're getting into the colder months, and around here they start spraying that salty mixture on the ground, like to thaw out the roads so it doesn't freeze, black ice, all that fun stuff. And when that starts getting in here, or dirt that kicks on like this gets under here, this thing can no longer go up and down. So, especially with the salt, if it starts corroding this thing, it's either going to get stuck closed or it's going to get stuck open. If it's stuck closed, you don't want that. because then when your pressure starts building, when you're driving and the gears are spinning, pressure builds in here. It has nowhere to go. This is supposed to relieve that pressure. It's going to start blowing out the axles. So that's a huge expense. You don't want that to happen. And then the other way is if it gets stuck open, now not only can everything get in here, but if you are off-roading this thing and you go in a big puddle or whatever the case may be, now you're going to start getting water and that type of junk inside your diff. So water and oil don't mix. You definitely do not want that. So again, this has been quite a big issue on the second gens, and it looks like it's the same here on the third gen. And now before we install the new one under the truck, I'm just going to show you here in the light. It's a little easier to see. Hopefully the camera picks it up so you guys can see. But on the new one, you just pop off this little blue cap. It's just protective cap to keep the threads clean and not getting damaged in the package. But you can kind of tell they're a little bit tapered. And what I mean by that is it gets a little bit fatter as it goes up. So when you're under the truck and you're threading this in, it's going to kind of cut. And the more it goes in, the tighter it gets, the better the seal. So you don't have to put any Loctite or anything like that on this, because again, you definitely do not want anything like that getting into the diff. All right, so back under the truck, we can get our new fitting here. And what I do, and I recommend you do as well, put it in by hand first, so you know you're not cross-threading it. And I don't know if you notice when I put it in, I kind of turn it backwards a little bit. You might have heard the click. That's just lining up the threads, and you can see it takes no effort at all to spin this thing in and get it started. So now you can see that it's going down, it's getting a little tighter. So you go, I don't know, maybe about a quarter of the way, and it's to the point now where you can't spin it by hand, but you know that it's not cross-threaded in any way. So now what you want to do, grab your 12mm wrench that we had, because again, the new one is 12. It does fit over with the box end again, and just nice and slowly tighten it up. You don't want to reef on this thing too much, because like I said, it's tapered. You don't want to tighten it so much that it's going to strip the threads in the shaft here, but you don't want it to be so loose that when it builds up pressure, it's going to start leaking. So what I do recommend is when you're done all this and you drive for a day or so, come under here and look, because if it is leaking, it'll leave kind of like an oily wet look here, and you know that you may need to tighten it up a couple more turns. All right, so I've got the hose on the fitting there, and I'm going to try to show you where I'm going to route this thing. So basically, when in there, you're going to go straight up and over the bar. This bar right here goes from side to side. Go over that, over the top of the frame. And then if you come to the other side here, you can see that's where it'll pop down. Then I'm going to strap it to the wiring harness here that you can see right in front of us that's attached to the frame. Then if you follow it along the outside, you can see the hose is going through there right now. I'll strap it to that as well, because that harness right there that you're seeing is for your brake light. And then through that hole up top there where the hose is going is where your filter will end up when we get to that point. And then just strap her down. One thing to keep in mind is when you're strapping it, I'm going to kind of leave slack like the brake lines have here, because when this thing starts to flex up and down, this is almost too short even. I've got the truck lifted and the brake lines should be extended, but I haven't got them yet. Luckily, the sway bar and the end links here catch it before it rips the brake lines apart, but you want to have enough slack left in there such as that. And when you got it all said and done, this is what it should look like. Filter's in there, put your clamps on. Don't go crazy with them. You don't have to snug them down until you can't turn it anymore. You're just going to break them. These little ones are not that strong. So get it down. You can see it's pinching the hose more than enough. It's not going to go anywhere. And you don't have to go nuts. Just tighten her down. And now all you got to do is work on getting this thing strapped up. All right, so now before we get the light back in there, I'll show you exactly where I got this thing. And you can see I've got the slack coming up, and I've just got it pointed down right there. The body of the truck kind of worked out perfectly just to keep it bent. I put one little zap strap on the bracket there. Your filter sits just down here. And then I put one more of the zap straps through the little hole. There's a little hole just behind the hose. It's hard to see in the dark, of course. But I got one strap through there. and then it drops to the bottom of the truck. So being that it's on the inside, now when you put this thing back in, you don't have to worry about the harness or any of the clips getting in the way and squishing anything. It's onto the side and out of the way. And now to get the light back in place, you can see, like I mentioned, that wiring harness. Those two clips just went into the two holes. And now all you got to do is line up the bottom pin and that top pin there with the little brown clip there, like I mentioned, and the gray one on the bottom. So get it kind of straight, line it up, come in here. You can see they line up pretty well because this thing is made to fit snug. You get them both in there, kind of straight, give it a push, you'll get that click, and you can see your light's all back in place, nice and snug. Then all you got to do, come back to the side here, put your bolt in the top, your bolt in the bottom, these two guys that we took out at the beginning, and the back of the truck is done. All right, so back under the truck, just to show you how I've got this thing strapped up. You can see the hose, that's where the hole is, just up behind there, comes down. I've got it strapped to the wiring harness, just where you can't see on the other side of the frame. Comes up over here. I left a bunch of slack up here in a loop, and then I've got it strapped to the brake line, which is just above that bar here. And then of course, you've got some more slack coming down to where it goes into the diff there. So now you've got some slack to go up and down. If anything is ever to happen to the hose, you've got more than enough to play with up here to gain yourself some. Maybe you got to cut it, make a extra joint, whatever the case may be. And you've got plenty of slack that you're not going to rip this thing apart. One thing to keep in mind, obviously, this is your exhaust right here. Try to keep it away from the exhaust. It is just a rubber hose. If the exhaust gets too hot, it will melt it. And then again, you can see I've got quite a bit of slack on this side. Make sure you keep it on this side, because if you go the other way, now you're getting to the point where you might run into your tire. So just keep in mind, run it through, find out what's best for you, strap it down. It does only come with 4 zap straps. I think I might go and pick up a couple more just to make it look a little neater, add a couple more here and there just to keep this thing snug. But the 4 are good enough to get you going at least. So keep in mind, you may want to pick up another little pack of zap straps. But other than that, this kit is super easy to install. So there you go, guys. Install is complete. Truck is all back together. Hoses are strapped up. Everything's good to go. We've got the sticker on the truck already. Again, big shout out to the guys at Gorilla Off-Road for sending out this kit. And if you want to pick one up for yourself, I will have a link in the description below where you can go. It'll send you in the right direction to get one for yourself. And in the description as well is all the other goodies we got on the truck already, because there is quite a few things on here. So make sure to like and subscribe and go check out those. And we will be getting this thing off-road. I promise it will come. It's just hard to go off-road and have fun and film for YouTube at the same time, because it takes more time than you guys think to do all this stuff. But if you want to see it, leave me a comment down below and I will see what I can do. Might not be the best videos in the world, but we'll go out, we'll test out the suspension, and we'll just put the truck to the test. So if you guys want to see that, make sure to subscribe. Again, leave a comment below, and hopefully we catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching, everybody.